Hello to my beautiful girlies and welcome to the Growth For Girlies podcast. You have just tapped into a space where mindset meets action, where we shed the old stories, activate our highest self, and step into the life we were always meant to live. But girlies, this is not just another mindset shifting podcast. This is a behavior shifting podcast. Here, we'll not only get into your limiting beliefs, but actually give you the tools and action steps you need to do to overcome and rewrite those beliefs. I'm your host, Alicia Tghlian, mindset coach, behavior consultant with a master's in behavior science. Using this knowledge, I'm going to get you to that exciting yet grounded place of expansion and growth. Each week, we dive into powerful topics that will leave you with that energetic download that you're going to need to get to your next step of alignment. So, take the deepest breath you've taken all day today and allow me to grant you with your weekly dose of growth and expansion. This is Growth for Girlies. Welcome to another episode of the Growth for Girlies podcast. Today, we're going to talk about risk-taking, expansion, and inner resistance as well. This is actually going to impact our growth and talk about the truth of, what we have to go through in our lives, and to see how to move forward with our lives and actually discover our purpose and to move forward with intention rather than just letting our lives get the best of us. So without further ado, let's get into it and let's start with our first topic. In this episode, we're going to talk about why playing it safe is the riskiest move that you can actually make. We're also going to talk about when growth feels more like chaos and, it's not a good feeling. It's not really exciting. But, the breakdown of growth is actually very, very necessary for us. And then we're actually going to talk about what you have to do when you're in this difficult place of chaos, when things don't feel like they're going right, and what that actually means energetically and universally for you. All right. So starting off with how growth, how it means and needs discomfort in our lives. So if you're going through something, you literally cannot expand your comfort zone without expansion. Okay, you have to go through difficult things. You have to live in the unknown to actually move forward, right? So if you think about someone that works in a 9 to 5 and they have been for 30 years, they may be miserable if they don't like the job. It could be something like a call center, right? And they don't move their body. They literally go to work, they come home, they watch TV, they go to sleep, and they do it all again. So someone like that, may not be living their best life or may not be living in expansion just because they're doing the same thing over and over and over. So you can't really expand, when you're in a situation like this. If you're not challenging yourself constantly, you can't be doing anything new. And then you can't be, getting all the benefits that you can out of life and getting all the challenges that, are going to help you grow. And that really, to me, is the fun of life. And honestly, I know this very well because, throughout my life as well, I've gone through serious up levels, which, sounds like a little brag, but those came with very, very difficult moments as well. So when we're stuck in this, easy kind of life where we're not doing much, we're just doing the 9 to 5, we're going home, we're just chilling, and then we do it all again. We're not going to go through major up levels. Like that's just not going to happen because you're not changing the things in your reality. Like you're not changing the things that are going on around you. If you're not changing yourself, if you're not changing the environment, then nothing else is going to change. And you're not going to become that version of you that is actually meant to be here. And for me as well, like with my up levels in life, they all had a crazy chaotic moment before them, right? So for example, I would go through a breakup and then I would start a business, or, I would go through a very difficult transition with roommates that would, honestly, if I have to go through something. Or another thing that I went through once was like with my roommates, I had, really good roommates in undergrad, and then, they kind of all just stopped hanging out with me and talking to me over something. So just little things like this or big things like this that hurt you in those moments, those are the things that going to move you forward, because when you go through a difficult time in life, then something good has to come out of it, right? Because life has its highs and lows. So if you think of life like a wave, when you go through a low, then you're going to skyrocket into a high. And when you're in a high, then enjoy it while you can, because, something may happen again that's going to move you into an even better high. And along with this, something else that I want to mention is that, taking risks in life and doing things that are outside of your comfort zone does not mean it's a negative. Like it doesn't mean that you're going to be reckless, and it doesn't mean that you have to do things that don't align with who you want to be and where you want to go, right? So if you are this 9 to 5 person that, is just not into their job or, doesn't really love what they're doing and they just come home and do nothing. I'm not saying to, start going to the bars every single day after your 9 to 5, right? I'm not saying to just do anything out of the ordinary. Like, I'm saying to intentionally add things that add meaning and purpose into your life that are going to step you into, the version of you that you want to be, right? So if you want to actually, be like super hot, super fit, like the best version of you physically, then, instead of going to the bars every day and making that your change, you can go for a walk every day and move forward with that. All right. And something else that we really need to notice during these moments is, how ready do you feel? Because 9 times out of 10, you're going to feel, kind of stuck, but you're going to be too comfortable with where you're at to actually make a difference and make a change. So that's why we go through very difficult times often, because they say that when the universe is trying to get your attention, they'll start by, throwing a pebble at your window. And if you don't respond to the pebble, they'll throw a rock. You don't respond to the rock, then it's going to throw a boulder. And then it's going to be a very chaotic moment. It's going to shake up your whole world, right? And that is a lesson that you have to learn. But it's, it does this in order for you to actually move forward, right? So if you don't take the hint with the pebble, if you don't learn your lesson with the rock, then it's going to put you through something more challenging. And it's not a bad thing, right? But it really just, steps you up and puts you into the person that you're meant to be. And if you, don't take the lesson from the boulder, where you're going to keep getting boulders over the same lesson over and over, right? If you don't learn your lesson, for example, from a relationship, then the next person you date is going to be the same boulder, right? They're going to result in the same chaos. And this is honestly the truth of life. If you're not up leveling, you're not learning your lessons, you're not changing your behaviors with these difficult things, then this is what's going to end up happening for you. And yeah, so if you feel like you're not ready for something, it doesn't matter. I feel like you definitely just have to move forward with it anyways, even if it's scary, even if it, doesn't feel natural, even if it just feels, out of the ordinary. If you're scared of going to the gym, like that's totally okay. You can just get up and go anyways, So these are the things that you kind of have to put your emotions to the side sometimes. You have to put your, your fear aside sometimes and just go do the thing anyways, no matter what. Like, your brain and your behaviors do not always have to match up, right? So if your brain is saying, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, you don't have to not move your body and still walk up to the doors of the gym, right? You can walk up to the doors and be like, hey, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, while you're literally moving your feet towards the doors. Our mind is going to try to keep us in our safe space because it knows survival wise, like that's how we're going to be the most effective. Like that's how we're going to actually survive and pass on our genes, because that is, what our fight or flight mode, our caveman brain still has in us, and it hasn't really developed out yet. But logically that if you step into the gym, that you still can do well. And the reason why we don't feel ready sometimes, or why we don't really engage in these actions or these behaviors that make us scared, is that our brain is trying to keep us in a comfort state. It's trying to keep us in our most comfortable moment, because it doesn't want to elicit a fight or flight mode, right? So if our brain literally thinks that when you're about to walk into a gym, it's going to make you feel the anxiety that you would feel the anxiety from if there was a lion chasing you, right? So like our amygdala is thousands of years behind where we are right now, right? So the fact that we go through so much anxiety, our brains are actually very outdated in that sense, because we just started with the civilization that we're in a couple hundred years ago, right? The cities that we have, the homes that we built, the grocery stores that we have on demand, like these are all still new to humans, and we still have parts in our brains that have not evolved along with this. So we do still have this caveman part of our brain that lights up when we feel anxiety about something that really doesn't really matter, right? So if you're walking into a gym and you feel like you're going to get judged by people, that's going to light up your brain. That's going to light up your amygdala. That's going to light up your fight or flight response, because we as humans were, biologically formed to stay in communities and stay in groups, because that is our best form of survival. So if we walk into an area where we think people are not going to like us, our caveman brain is going to think, okay, A, I might get killed here. B, this is not my community. C, I'm alone. I'm on my own. I'm not gonna be able to reproduce with any of these people because they're not part of my tribe, my community. So all these things signal unsafe and signal that you're not actually able to potentially pass on your genes, which is the whole point with being animal, quote unquote, even though we are humans as well. But these are the things that come with that. So just a reminder that, when you are feeling anxiety in a social situation or just a situation in general that really doesn't need that level of, fear, just know that that is the cause of it, right? It's just an outdated amygdala that's thousands of years old that hasn't moved along and hasn't worked up to where we are now with civilization. All right. And something that I've actually felt in these cases with my own self, when I felt too nervous to do something and then did it anyways, was actually starting my TikToks with Growth for Girlies. So I actually never made TikToks consistently before. I was a little bit nervous. I didn't really know what other people would think. And then especially my friends, that was like actually the scariest part of posting TikToks. It was actually not the strangers. It was more the people that I know, the friends that I have. I didn't really want to, be so vulnerable and exposed to the people around me. But I knew I had like a calling and I knew, I needed to make a change if I wanted to step towards the life that I wanted. So that's why, I did them. I felt the fear. I was afraid. I was very afraid, but I did it anyways because it's not worth it. Like, it's really not worth staying in that fear. Like, you might as well just move forward and, step up to the life that you want to live, or at least try your very best to do that. And then you just feel more fulfilled and just like a better version of yourself in general. And even if you fail, you're failing forwards. You're failing in the right direction, right? You have to go through like so many failures before you hit it right once. That's what Thomas Edison did. I think he went through 1,000 different versions of the light bulb before he made it work. And that's exactly the definition of failing forwards. It's, you gotta be afraid, you gotta be resilient and move forward even when something goes wrong. Feel the emotion, but keep going. And another thing that I wanted to mention is that you don't actually need a full clarity on a plan before you take action, right? You don't have to see the full picture. You don't have to know exactly what you're going to do at every step of the way, because first of all, you're not going to follow that plan, I promise you, because you're starting that plan and creating that plan from a place that, hasn't learned enough yet and doesn't know enough information yet and hasn't collected enough data yet. So literally just knowing the next step is going to naturally move you into the step after that and the step after that and the step after that. And that's the beauty of all of this, and the beauty of, moving towards like a plan or like a goal is that, you don't need it all laid out. You can literally just know what you have to do next, right? So if you want to be a millionaire, you want to be, an entrepreneur, you want to start like a clothing brand, right? So the first thing you have to do is, maybe talk to manufacturers. First thing you have to do is actually know what kind of clothing you want to make or what kind of clothing you want to post or work with, right? So like I mentioned, you just need the next step. And then after that, you can pick your next step. So yeah, that's because like a lot of us really, really get stuck in the analysis paralysis phase of all this, especially with goals and business and even, wanting to work out consistently. We want to, have a very, very structured, full plan ahead. And then this really just stops us from actually taking any action or move towards anything in general. So yes, I really think that we should definitely just take any action. Any action is better than no action. And then after that, you'll start to collect data and then naturally move into the next step much more easily. Yeah, and more on a spiritual perspective, especially with our intuition, the difference between, your intuition and anxiety, because sometimes people say that they're not sure if it's something that, they shouldn't be doing because they feel anxious about it. But then other times people are, they're unsure, they're not trusting themselves. They don't know if it's their intuition or if it's their anxiety, right? So the quickest way to tell the difference between your intuition and anxiety is that intuition feels very faint. Like it feels like a faint whisper. Like it feels like it's just there. It's just annoying. And there's not really any emotion attached to it. Like it just feels like it exists, right? However, with anxiety, it's a scream, it's a blare, it's on repeat, and if it doesn't work, then your brain is gonna try something else to stop you from doing that thing. So yeah, the big difference is, how it makes you feel. Like if it's getting your heart racing and freaking you out, it's gonna be anxiety. But if it is, just something that you feel like, something that you feel like you should be doing and, you kind of just have a knowing of it, then that is your intuition, and that is the difference. And we know that, if you do end up following your intuition, then that is the path of least resistance in, your life path and what you're meant to do and in your purpose in this life. But if you follow your anxiety, then you're not going to get very far, and you're going to get many boulders thrown at you. And finally, I want to mention that, the things that we go through and a lot of the anxiety that we have is very much just old programming that we've been instilled and has been instilled in us from our parents or from their parents. And it's very much a generational thing. So if you are afraid of taking the leap and becoming an entrepreneur, it may likely be because your parents are not entrepreneurs, right? They may, be pushing you towards a 9-to-5 because they've been taught that it's much more stable, right? Or they may be pushing you towards getting a degree because that's what they were taught that, will make you safe and stable, right? So these are things that we have to be very aware of, especially with where our beliefs are coming from and how, our parents especially are speaking to us and, what they're pushing onto us in terms of beliefs. But it's also very important to mention that they are obviously, typically just doing this to make sure that you're okay. Because like I mentioned in the beginning, like all we want as humans on a biological innate level is to make sure our offspring survive. Right. So if our parents are pushing the narrative of, make sure you get a degree, make sure you get your 9-to-5, make sure you work the 50 years and then get your pension and you're good. If they push that narrative onto you, it's likely because obviously they want you to, be successful in their terms, but they also want their offspring to, do well and survive and perform well. So taking risks that are outside of their comfort zones are going to be huge, anxiety provokers for them. And in turn, because those are the beliefs that they pass down to you, are going to be huge anxiety provokers for you as well. So it really, really helps to just be aware of, where your beliefs are coming from, why you're feeling anxiety about certain things, if the anxiety is, relevant, if it has any validity at all. And going off of that is going to really help you towards and making things a lot more clear for you. All right. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast for Growth for Girlies. My name is Alicia Tghlian. And if you want to check out my socials, it is Growth for Girlies on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next episode. And I can't wait to see you then. All right. Bye.